think this whole thing is wild, really wild. The main thing I want to talk about spurred from this, okay? This is from Cameron Winklevoss, a co-founder of Gemini Exchange. A lot of you guys have heard of Winklevosses or Winklevi. However you want to define the brothers, they're the ones that, that sued Mark Zuckerberg for stealing the idea of Facebook. But that was years ago. They started Gemini, right? And recently they had issues with Gemini Earn because that was offered by Genesis, and Genesis stopped withdrawals. So it's been about a month or two, and Gemini says they've been working, or trying to work with Genesis on opening up withdrawals. But today, they published this, and they're just fed up. They're really fed up. Now, basically, this is an open letter to Barry Silbert, who is the CEO of DCG, who is the parent company of Genesis and the parent company of Grayscale, the two biggest names in the space, among others. Like CoinDesk is also owned by DCG. They are actually absolutely enormous in this space. Okay, but what's said in this letter is not good, not good at all. So to start out, 47 days since Genesis halted withdrawals, 340,000 earned users, right? This is all from Gemini's platform. They called it Gemini Earn. So there were 340,000 users, okay? And, there's a sob story, of course, about how, husband and wife, school teacher, policeman, school, everyone from all walks of life, right, lent you their crypto, around 900 million, okay? 900 million, so close to $1 billion. Then it goes on, and it's just more damaging, that for the past 6 weeks, they basically have been trying to work and get Barry into a meeting so that they can talk about how to give back that $900 million. And according to Cameron and Gemini, DCG has been pushing him aside, right? Basically making it impossible to get in a room to find a resolution. They've been dragging their feet. And according to Gemini right here, bad faith stall tactics, okay? So that's not sounding good. That's not sounding good. But it gets worse. That's the thing. It gets much worse. So they then go on and blame DCG as the problem, not Genesis, DCG, because DCG, the parent company, was the company that borrowed $1.675 billion. $1.7 billion. DCG borrowed from Genesis. $1.7 billion. And what did they do with that money? Well, according to Cameron, they fueled greedy share buybacks. They participated in liquid venture investments and kamikaze Grayscale NAV trades that ballooned the fee-generating AUM of your trust, all at the expense of creditors and for your own personal gain. Okay? That's pretty damning. That's pretty damning. And if true, then yes, DCG is definitely incompetent. Barry is incompetent. And this could lead to something much worse for the entire industry. Okay? But in total, they took out $1.7 billion that they have to patch. So what did they do with the $1.7 billion, you may be wondering? Well, according to this old article on Reuters, $1.2 billion was lost due to Three Arrows Capital. Okay, here we go. So Barry answered, DCG did not borrow $1.7 billion from Genesis. DCG has never missed an interest payment to Genesis, is current on all outstanding loans. Next loan is May 2023. DCG delivered to Genesis and your advisor's proposal on December 29 and has not received any response. Interesting. So he's claiming they didn't borrow, and well, I think he's saying that number is wrong, because he had to have borrowed something. Otherwise, there would not be an interest payment to Genesis. So there's definitely something, a large amount that he borrowed, but not 1.675 billion. He didn't address the NAV trades. He didn't address the other investment, illiquid investments and stuff like that. And then he's like, well, there's a proposal. But that's not what Cameron wants. Cameron wants to sit in a room with him to talk. But Barry obviously does not want to talk. So it's just a proposal and not a meeting, right? So not sure what that's about. But I guess that's the latest. Again, developing situation. Next up, let's talk about Bitcoin and its birthday. It's 14 years old today. 14. You think about it, barely turned teenager, right? So if you think about any kind of technical revolution that we have had over the last century, not a lot of them progressed far within 14 years. You look at the invention of the internet or the mobile phone, right? It took a long time, decades upon decades, before mass adoption, before it became what it is now, right? And to think that Bitcoin started 14 years ago as an experiment, right? Whoever Satoshi is, or the group, right? They set off releasing the Genesis block and then releasing Bitcoin upon the world, and look at where it is today, right? It's so big, so widely known, and so indestructible that governments don't even talk about trying to shut down Bitcoin anymore because they realize it's fruitless. Think about how hard that is to be able to create something that's globally adopted now and so big that you can't even shut it down. You can't replicate this. This is kind of like once in a lifetime kind of thing, right? So even though it has gotten to this state, it's still early. It's still a teenager, and there's so much more that will be coming with this revolution, right? So here's block 0, the very first block, block 0, timestamp, January 3rd, 2009. If you were mining Bitcoin back then with a difficulty of 1, using just a laptop, you could have gotten tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin within a very short amount of time. But most of us were not paying attention, unfortunately, in 2009. But yeah, for its 14th birthday, obviously we're at 16.7, right? But you look at previous birthdays, starting with 2011, you got 30 cents, jumping up to almost $5, jumping up to almost $13, then all the way up to $818. Then you go down to 84, 429, then you jump to 1,000, then you jump up to 15,000, right? Then you come back down to 3,800, 7,300, then you go whopping to 32,000, 46,000, and here we are, 16,000. But the moral of this is, yes, Bitcoin goes up and down. It does go up and down. It doesn't go up infinitely forever, right? So it does go up and down, but you'll notice that the lows are getting much higher and the highs are also getting much higher because Bitcoin is scarce and there's just a lot of people that are buying and holding. Well, this is a blow to Celsius. I think many people forgot, including myself, that Celsius has about 37,000 Bitcoin miners. That's with Core Scientific. But here's the thing. They can't afford to pay their bills, electricity costs, maintenance costs, and Core Scientific argues that these 37,000 mining rigs cost them $2 million per month to maintain. So one of the things that Celsius was looking for was to kind of keep these rigs going and take the Bitcoin that they mine and sell it off and kind of plug some of the holes they have. But the courts ruled that, yeah, you can't do this because Core Scientific is also having their own legal financial problems. So the courts ruled that, yeah, they get to shut down the 37,000 mining rigs, which definitely doesn't help Celsius. But it helps Core Scientific because now they don't have to pay this $2 million bill every month to keep it going when they see no benefit from it, right? So it helped Core Scientific quite a lot, but another blow to Celsius, and it's still unknown when they're going to sell off their assets. I don't know where the auction is. They kind of claimed bankruptcy right around the same time as Voyager, and Voyager has gone through its proceedings and, you know, first sold to FTX, now sold to Binance pretty quickly, relatively speaking. Celsius is still unknown at this point. I don't know what's taking so long, but not good for them. Not good for them. Lightning Network is expanding as well. Lightning Network, the capacity, the liquidity is growing by leaps and bounds, and now we'll have Bitcoin ATMs utilizing Lightning Network so that it becomes much cheaper and makes a lot more sense, because a lot of these ATMs, the spreads on the buys and sells are so off. Mostly because I think they're afraid that the price changes too much within a 10-minute span, right? But with the Lightning Network, almost everything is processed instantaneously, so you don't have to worry about that. So hopefully, this makes Bitcoin ATMs a lot more useful. I've been seeing a lot more Bitcoin ATMs around the nation, especially when I'm just looking at, you know, shopping at malls and stuff like that. I see them all the time, but I don't see anyone using them, and hopefully they will in the future. For SushiSwap, a lot of you guys do use SushiSwap. I wasn't even aware they had two other products. One is an incubator and one is a lending product. So they will be shutting down both to just concentrate on their DEX. Nothing wrong with that. This made news. Coinbase settles with the New York financial regulator. Okay. You know, the headline is 100 million, but no, it's 50 million that they agreed to pay, and then they agreed to spend 50 million to improve its compliance program. Now, why did they have to settle? What were they getting sued for? Well, according to New York State Department of Financial Services, Coinbase did not do a good enough job with following anti-money laundering laws. So they didn't conduct sufficient background checks. Okay? So, I don't know. I mean, I know Coinbase, you know, they have KYC. They collect KYC, so I don't know if they didn't collect enough or what was going on. But supposedly the New York State Department thought they didn't. So they sued them. But they settled this. 50 million is being paid in fines. 50 million is going to be used to improve the compliance program. Excuse me, and that's done. This meme token, Bonk, and I've been avoiding talking about it because I know what happens in these scenarios. Whenever you have some kind of hot, hyped up project that skyrockets, the next move is usually it dumps, right? So a lot of you guys, I hear a lot of people talk about this. You better be careful. You better know what you're doing, because this could collapse just as fast as it went up, and you have no one to blame but yourself if you're going to be aping or FOMO into it, okay? But this explains the reason why Solana probably has been recovering. We've seen an influx of money into Solana, right? This could be the reason. Now, Solana stopped pumping. So that could be an early indication that this whole thing may be coming to a stop soon. But again, be careful. That's what the courthouse looked like as SBF was entering in, right? And as expected, he pleaded not guilty. But some controversy. I don't think him pleading not guilty is a surprise. But remember that 250 million bail, 10% of it was put down. Now, most of it, we would think, came from the parents, right? But there were two other people that put up collateral for Sam. And unfortunately, the judge accepted a motion to redact the identities of the two guys, right? Everyone's thinking one of them has to be Kevin O'Leary. The other, we don't know, right? But it would have been nice to find out who actually put up the money for SBF. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, right, as to who wants to protect him, who wants to get him out, right? We don't know at this. This is kind of a shocking news. And this adds to the conspiracy theories that people had about SBF being a fall guy, the government's possibly, setting this whole thing up to see FTX fail so that they could see the entire crypto sector fail. Remember this guy, Daniel Fredberg? A lot of people said, hey, this guy is no good. He was involved with some online casino or online poker scam where, he was advising people that had God mode, and it was just like, ripping people off left and right. And he was the lead counsel to FTX and Alameda. But, this guy just disappeared off the face of the earth, supposedly. But now it's been reported, no. He's been talking to about 20 U.S. investigators, and he will be standing in as a government witness. He is not going to be charged with anything. Okay? So he's not pleading or anything. He's not like Gary or Caroline that actually made some kind of plea agreement. He's actually just coming in as a witness. So it makes you wonder if this guy was planted in all along because they knew something was going to happen, or he made something happen. We don't know. This is wild. Wild is coming out. So he's going to be a government witness come October. Okay, and he's been sharing details about SBF's use of customer money, how sister trading firm Alameda Research operated, and a whole lot of stuff. So he's been meeting with 20 investigators, including officials from Justice Department, FBI, SEC, and the South District of New York, right? And supposedly, because he was a lawyer, right, he asked FTX to waive his attorney-client privilege. They said no, but he ignored that anyways and still worked with the authorities. Okay, I don't even see how that's legal when they said you can't. Well, I guess in the case of fraud, I guess you can make the case that you can break the attorney-client privilege, but still. All right, next up is Silvergate, which is a large crypto bank, and they are hurting right now, because of the massive amount of withdrawals and because their ties to FTX and Alameda. They had to sell off a ton of assets, and they scrapped whatever they bought from Facebook. Facebook had their Dem project, which is like their own crypto coin, is their stable coin. Facebook took a huge loss. I don't know how many billions they lost. They sold it to Silvergate, who is now writing that off to zero. So they're giving up on that. They're laying off 40% of their personnel, which is around 200 employees, and they're liquidating their debt, and they lost $718 million in the process. People are starting to ask about when is the next CPI data? When is the next FOMC meeting, right? People are just worried about what's coming. So the good thing is the next CPI data release is January 12th. That's only a couple weeks away. So we'll see. We had 2 consecutive CPI releases that indicated that inflation was coming down. And Powell was even kind of dovish with this last FOMC meeting press conference. I mean, he said there's still a lot of work to be done, but he was open to the fact that they could just decrease rate hikes until one day there's no more, and then we stay steady, right? So that will come in February. So this next CPI reading will be absolutely crucial. If we see inflation go down more, then that's 3 consecutive months. That is no longer coincidence. That's what Powell is waiting for, right? So we don't have much longer to wait. It's coming. It's coming.